guys, so we are off on another adventure, exploring another city. Joshua had to go to New Jersey for work, so we decided that Philadelphia was only like an hour away, so why not go explore Philly? And so yeah, we are actually on our way to see Liberty Bell, which we saw in Lego form this summer, and now we're gonna see the real thing. So yeah, wish us luck. We have no idea what we're doing, but yeah, we'll check in a bit. Alrighty, so we just saw the Liberty Bell. Do you want to be in this? No? What do you think? Just about. Cool. Yeah, it's cool. It's really neat to like read the history of all this stuff. There is a museum here, and it is free to come and see the bell. I could take the vlog camera over there by it. It is indoors, which is nice because it's freezing outside. But now we're gonna go and get tickets and go over to Independence Hall. And I'm sorry, Josh has bronchitis. So, but we're gonna go get tickets and go over to Independence Hall and see where the Declaration of the Constitution are signed. So this is actually turning out to be quite the fun adventure, considering, I don't know, 30 minutes before we got in the car and headed to Philadelphia, we're like, what are we gonna do today? And we're like, oh look, the Liberty Bell's 30 miles away, so let's go see that. So yeah, I guess I'll walk you guys over there and show it to you, and I'll pop a few pictures of us with it too as well. So yeah, let's go check it out. Hey guys, so we're outside of the visitor center. My hat's kind of all floppy, but this is where you get tickets for Independence Hall. So the tickets are free, and they do tours like at certain times of the day, but it's actually right across the street from where you go to see the Liberty Bell. So you go in like right here where Josh is covering. But yeah, so we're gonna walk over to Independence Hall and we will vlog the tour if we can. So we'll check in with you guys in just a bit. Alrighty, so we are making our way to Independence Hall. We just passed the entrance to Liberty Bell. I'm gonna step over here so y'all can see it. There we go. That is Independence Hall. So we're gonna go do a tour there, and yeah, I'll vlog everything that I can.
I heard a question coming over here. Someone asked the furniture. Most of the furniture in these buildings are what we call period antiques. They're not original to the building, but they're original to the time period. There is one exception in the next room that we'll see, George Washington's chair. That is an original piece to the building. But what you see before here is how the building would have been laid out when it was first opened for business starting in the 1740s. The building takes about 20 years to finish. Pennsylvania is always short of funding for constructing the building. It's not until 1753, in fact, that they get a working bell in the tower, which begins to toll for about 80 years before it cracks and eventually it goes on display across the street. This room here represents the rights that you receive as English subjects in the court system. It's a system of justice that was adapted after the Revolution and maintained in the United States. Origins in English common law, which holds that trials are to be held in open for the public, Trials will be jury trials. A grand jury decides if there's enough evidence to proceed with an indictment, proceed to trial, and then a trial jury, usually 12 men, listens to the evidence and determines whether the defendant is innocent or guilty. Although confined to the dock, literally standing trial in this iron cage, the prisoner is innocent until proven guilty. Has the right to counsel, can hire a lawyer to argue their case, can call witnesses to provide testimony in their defense, and can confront witnesses to the prosecution speaking against them. Maintaining the rule of law in the court, a panel of judges, all in all, a very fair system. Now, if you read the Declaration of Independence that will be published for the first time to the public, starting on July 5th of 1776, you will see the word taxes listed only once. You'll see repeatedly law, trial, jury, legislatures, participation in government. Those are the key issues for the American Revolution. It's not a war on taxes, much to common belief today. Taxes were unpopular back in the 18th century, just as they are today. However, the colonists are not going to break apart their relationship with the mother country, divorce themselves from the British Empire simply over taxes. It's their right to be participating in their own government, to continue to enjoy rights and freedoms that have been traditions for centuries before anyone had even bothered thinking of independence. Getting back to the American Revolution, this room here was the scene of the Second Continental Congress, which met starting in May of 1775. Setting aside their differences, which was actually a year-long process, the members of this committee are agreed that the only way to survive in the future is to unite, to declare independence, and to begin to assert themselves as a free people. You have some of the best minds in the colonies at this time meeting and working together. From Massachusetts, John and Sam Adams, John Hancock presiding over the convention here at the President's table. We'll have Benjamin Franklin, Pennsylvania, of course, Thomas Jefferson and George Washington from Virginia. So very well-regarded and competent men from their respective home colonies. It takes them, though, a year to broach the subject and then finally declare independence, as initially the room is very divided, some with reconciliation, others feel that action is needed. Events outside of this room will also dictate the course of the future. You'll have public opinion swinging towards self-governance and independence with the publication of Thomas Paine's Common Sense, advocating that Americans can and should govern themselves. Additionally, you'll have the King, King George III, attempting to intimidate the colonists to abandon the rebellion and to recognize his royal authority. He'll issue a proclamation to Parliament in October of 1775, which will essentially state that anyone participating in this rebellion is a traitor and subject to a traitor's death. They're no longer under his protection as their royal sovereign, and that their only hope for salvation is to abandon this rebellion, swear oaths of loyalty, ask for the king's pardon, and accept the rule of his government. This has the opposite effect of what King George III intends. It actually unites the body here. By June of 1776, the colonists are ready to vote for probably the biggest decision of many of their lives. The Virginia delegation, through Richard Henry Lee, puts forth the proposal for consideration. These united colonies are, and of right ought to be, free and independent states. Many are willing to vote for this, however, the decision will not be unanimous. Each colony has a single vote, and it's determined that all 13 colonies must vote the same way. We cannot split this, all must be in or all must be out. At the time, there are still a few stubborn holdouts who, for whatever reason, will not vote for independence. 30-day recess is called, during which time anticipating independence will be the deciding force. A committee of 5 is formed to draft a statement of intentions to eventually become the Declaration of Independence. Benjamin Franklin and John Adams assist the primary author, Thomas Jefferson, during this time period. And by July 1st, we have his Declaration of Independence completed, reconvening of the Second Continental Congress, and we will have enough support to pass the resolution on July 2nd. That's the actual date that independence was voted upon. Those who are against independence or who just cannot bring themselves to vote for it make themselves absent. We have a unanimous vote for independence. The Declaration of Independence is then considered by the Congress. Over the next 2 days, they will analyze Jefferson's work line by line and make about 80 changes to it. Most fundamentally, an entire paragraph condemning the Atlantic slave trade, blaming King George III for supporting slavery, is in fact completely redacted. They see this as off topic and too controversial, and that addressing slavery will do more to divide the colonies than to unite them. By July 4th of 1776, the Declaration of Independence in its final form is authorized for printing. 200 of these broadsides are produced here in Philadelphia and sent far and wide throughout the new United States. Public readings, for postings in local newspapers, and for just dissemination to the population. As quickly and as efficiently as possible, this gets the job done, but it lacks a little bit of symbolism. It's decided, a week later, that a more formal version should be written up, should be fairly engrossed for signature. So starting in mid-July, the assistant to the secretary begins to very beautifully draw up the Declaration of Independence in anticipation for a signing ceremony, which actually takes place on August 2nd, 1 month after the vote. So this is the finalized version that you'll find in the National Archives in Washington, D.C. Eventually, 56 men will fix their signatures to it. Now, regardless of which version of the Declaration of Independence you're using, it's still a firm sign of the commitment to the ideals that these men are establishing for a proper and just free society. The ideas of self-government, that a government, if it is legitimate, is responsible and beholden to its people, and that it must respect the fact that free men are born with rights. They're not granted by the government, they cannot be taken away by the government. They are natural rights. This is a familiar concept to us today, but it's a new and radical idea in the 18th century. A time of divine rights of kings, of monarchies, of power being asserted and not being respected to the common person. Very high ideals, but simply declaring independence is not enough. 7 more years of warfare will be required for that independence to be recognized internationally. By 1783, the Treaty of Paris formally ends the American Revolutionary War, but that's just the beginning of the American Revolution. Over the next few years, the United States is going to have to learn how to operate as free and independent states. At the time, it is a confederacy of 13 sovereign nations who work together voluntarily under the Articles of Confederation. This works well enough during the war with England when we have a common threat and our survival is at risk, but very shortly afterwards, the states begin to fall upon their old rivalries. You have 13 different economies, 13 different legal systems, and you have no real means of unifying them. There's no president, there's no strong central government. The states begin to quite literally fight amongst each other. We'll see border skirmishes breaking out between neighboring states like Pennsylvania and Maryland. By 1787, economic distress, internal rebellions, and the threat of foreign invasion has led to a conference to be held here in this very same room. Starting in the early summer of 1787, we have delegations representing 12 of 13 states under the leadership of George Washington. Sitting in that very chair, one piece of original furniture left in the building, George Washington will be aided by men like Benjamin Franklin, Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, who will begin to draft a series of compromises which will evolve into a proposal for the states for a new type of government. Instead of a confederacy of 13 nations, a republic of 13 states, 13 provinces. Now, organizing this new republic is a series of balancing acts and compromises. They recognize the need for strong and stable and effective government, but they are very deeply concerned that a strong government can quickly become abusive of its power and tyrannical. Several safeguards are enacted to hopefully avoid this. Executive authority will be invested into a president, a temporary leader, one who is elected, and one who has a set time limit for his time in office. Most importantly, one who does not control the purse strings. Legislative authority, including the power to tax, regulate the economy, is invested in the Congress. There's a very important reason why the United States has a bicameral or two-chamber legislature. Large and small states could not agree on how to form a legislature. Small states wanted equal representation, large states wanted proportional representation based on their populations. They're so intransigent about this issue that they threatened to walk out and dissolve the conference. In the Great Compromise of the Constitutional Convention, it's decided very wisely to include both. Finally, interpreting the law calls to yet a separate and other independent branch of government, the United States Supreme Court. Very little is actually, attention is given to the Supreme Court in the original Constitution, simply the number of justices, how they will be selected, and their term limits, which will be for life based upon good behavior. A series of checks and balances are installed in this Constitution as well, granting limited means of control and influence from one branch over the other, hopefully establishing a power balance that prevents any one branch of government from becoming too powerful. Again, the issue of slavery is brought up, and again, the issue is determined to be too controversial. Many of the states, again, argue this is not why we are meeting. Slavery is a question that cannot be solved during this short convention and should be left to future generations to work out on its own. Now, that lack of ability to form a solution leads us to probably the best mechanics in the Constitution. Meeting here with the issue of slavery and other issues at the time, many of the men recognize that they cannot address every problem or even anticipate every problem or challenge for the future. There's a neat saying amongst military members here: planning, strategy, all works very well until the opening shots. That's the same thing for the Constitution. It looks great on paper, but we're not going to know how well it works or what works and what does not work until it's first put through its paces. So this is just a proposal in 1787, and along with that proposal, the idea that including amendments, changes, additions, or deletions to the Constitution will allow it to survive for the future. Some amendments are very famous and successful. The first 10 are Bill of Rights, guaranteeing the basic freedoms and protections for American citizens. That's ratified very quickly in 1791. The most recent amendment, number 27, was actually proposed with the first Bill of Rights. That was restricting congressional pay raises till after the next election cycle. It took about 200 years to ratify that. We have other amendments as well that guarantee citizenship rights to all Americans. Following the end of the Civil War, which finally settles the slavery issue, we'll have 3 amendments. Ending slavery, granting equal rights to the former slaves, and granting citizenship to the former slaves. But still, only half of the population has the right to vote. Not until 1920 that women are granted the right to vote under the Constitution. You should probably say recognized to have the right, because again, as I said before, these rights are not granted, they're rights that you're born with, but it takes some work for the government to respect those rights. Go back to 1787, however. No one can see the future, no one can anticipate whether this will be successful or not. Several men feel that they have no moral right to dictate government from one generation to another, that each generation of Americans should draft their own constitution as the times dictate. Others feel that the states will never go for this arrangement. They feel that abandoning their status as sovereign nations and joining into this federal union will be so unpopular that the Constitution will never see the light of day. A few others are a bit more optimistic. We have Dr. Benjamin Franklin, who directs attention to this relief that is carved in the top of George Washington's chair. It's a little hard to see from here, but this is a half sun, gilded in gold, with 13 rays of light crowned by a liberty band. Dr. Franklin sees this as the perfect metaphor for the new republic under this Constitution. And he will state that often and often he gazed at this half sun, unable to decide whether we're a rising sun or a setting sun. But at length, he has the great happiness to know it is indeed a rising sun, not a setting sun. Fine words of optimism from one of the great founders of the United States. Dr. Franklin realizes that this type of government is perhaps the most fragile, most vulnerable to collapse and to decay. So he issues a warning. Upon leaving the building, his work completed, he's approached by several people, including the wife to the mayor of Philadelphia, who will ask him, well, Dr. Franklin, what have you given us? Do we have a republic? Or do you have a government? His response is, you have a republic, madam, if you can keep it.
Alright, so we found Carpenter's Hall, which is just behind us, right there, that door, but they just closed, so we weren't able to go inside. But now we're going to go and get something to eat. We're a little hungry, so we figured we are in Philadelphia, so what better to get than a Philly cheesesteak with no cheese for me, because, well, I'm allergic if you don't know, but Josh can have like the real authentic thing, and I can have a modified one. So, yeah, but this is, I mean, this area of Philadelphia is absolutely amazing. So many historic buildings, and so much of our nation's history is here. If you ever find yourself in Philadelphia, or you're just looking for a city to visit on like a long weekend or something, I highly recommend it, because there's no way that we're going to be able to see all the things that we want to see just today, and we're actually considering planning like an actual trip here so that we can do all the things we want to do and see all the things that we want to see. So yeah, we'll catch up with you when we've got some Philly cheesesteaks. Okay, so mine is not an accurate representation of a cheesesteak because dairy allergy, but this looks delicious anyway. And fries. And let's see Joshua's. We are at SONY'S famous cheesesteaks and burgers on Market Street. We're actually near the waterfront, which is quite nice. We might walk down there next. Alright, let's check out Josh's sandwich. It looks good. It's a sign of a good Philly. What do you think? Is it good? Yeah. Alrighty. So we're gonna enjoy dinner, and then we'll check back in with you guys with whatever we're gonna do next. Not sure if we're gonna explore more of the city, or if we're gonna start heading back to New Jersey so that we can get a good night's sleep before Josh's work tomorrow. But yeah, we'll let you guys know. Check in a bit. Alrighty guys, so obviously we're back in the car. It is just really, really cold, and it's getting quite dark out, so we decided that we would start heading back. We probably have about like an hour and a half to 2 hour drive ahead of us to go, like, I think it's 40 miles. So, yeah, but we've had an absolutely amazing day in Philly. I hope that I was able to convey, like, kind of what everything meant to us. You know, we've toured Thomas Jefferson's house before. His estate's called Monticello. It's in Charlottesville, Virginia, and that was really amazing to be in the home of the person who authored the Declaration of Independence. But to be in the room where Jefferson presented it to the Continental Congress and where it was signed, and to learn about how that, you know, came about and stuff, was absolutely amazing. And like I was trying to say earlier, but whisper, being in the room where the Declaration of Independence was signed is probably one of the best ways that we could honor any president of our country, just because of the oath of office that they take to uphold and protect and defend it. Yeah, so here soon we're gonna have to make a trip to DC. Now, since we have been to the home of the author of the Declaration, we have been to Independence Hall where it was signed. Now we need to get to DC and actually go see it. So I think we need to put that on our list of trips to do. Yeah, so this vlog is, I'm really sorry that it's probably, you know, all over the place and stuff, but I hope you enjoyed our day in Philadelphia. It is for sure going to be way too dark here soon to vlog in the car, and I don't want to distract Joshua because city traffic is insane. So yeah, I hope that you guys enjoyed this one. We'll see you in the next adventure vlog, which very well could be New York City in just a couple of days. Anyways, I love you guys, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!